Evan Peters, the actor who portrays Jeffrey Dahmer in the widely successful Netflix series Dahmer, Monster: The Jeffrey Dahmer Story, revealed the rigorous preparation he undertook to accurately depict the infamous serial killer. His revelation reveals, however, an intense preparation with lots of sacrifices that perhaps you couldn't even imagine. So what's all about the behind-scene preparation tall that Peter had? First, let's explore the arduous work Peters endured in capturing Dahmer's ominous essence. In a discussion with Murphy and the show's cast, released on November 28th, Peters specified the hard endeavor that went into replicating Dahmer's ominous presence. He clarified that Dahmer had such a unique voice and way of speaking, adding that he consulted with pronunciation coaches and made a 45-minute sound composite which he would listen to every day to remain in the accent, but also to get into the mindset for the day and the scenes we were shooting. He also tried to comprehend what he was reasoning and going through and just tried to stay in it because it would have been too difficult to go in and out of it. In reality, Peters took matters into his own hands, quite literally. Murphy unveiled that Peters even wore lead weights around his hands to work on Dahmer's peculiar posture. At the outset, it was essential for him to comprehend how that felt even as they were shooting. He also added that at the start he wore wardrobe shoes, jeans, and glasses, and even kept a cigarette in his hand all the time, just attempting to get all of these external habitual reactions so he wasn't considering it when they were shooting. When Niecy Nash, who plays Dahmer's neighbor Glenda Cleveland in the series, asked Peters how he was able to transition away from his role after filming, Peters responded that he was lucky enough to be able to take a break and relax. He explained that he hadn't worked since they completed the project, and he tried to rid himself of the character. In an attempt to lighten the mood, Peters jokingly mentioned that he watched Step Brothers to change up the psyche, which prompted a laugh from co-star Richard Jenkins. He said that he had to fill himself back up with positive things, like comedies and romance, after investing so much negativity and darkness in the character. So in what ways does playing similar roles affect Evan Peters so badly? Even though Evan Peters has been praised as one of the premier performers of this era due to his appearances in American Horror Story and Dahmer Monster, his skill in playing a range of unsettling characters on the former show has earned him a great amount of admiration. Nevertheless, Peters has confessed that there were moments when the parts he was asked to play were so demanding that he contemplated leaving the field of acting. During one of his less recognized performances, Evan Peters was required to manifest a delicate aspect of his character with Kate Winslet in The Mayor of Easttown. Peters became highly distressed when he believed the scene didn't communicate successfully and he felt he was not able to do it. After being comforted by the director, who guaranteed him the scene was fine, Peters conceded to doubting his inner discernment. What exactly was the horror behind the various roles he played? Peters is highly regarded for his talent in depicting unsettling characters, such as his role in the contentious Netflix series Jeffrey Dahmer. His most acclaimed work, however, is his years of passionate acting in Ryan Murphy's American Horror Story, where he has depicted a vast number of perturbing personas, including those of real cult leaders in the 7th season of the show Cult. Despite this, Peters confessed that becoming completely immersed in these characters hurt his mental health. He took a break from the series after the 7th season, and viewers attributed this to his extraordinary portrayal of Kai Anderson, a contemporary right-winger who was motivated by Trump's victory to commit heinous acts. Peters expressed that the roles were often very challenging for him to take on as they were so dissimilar to his real-life persona. During an interview with GQ, he expressed that the roles were both taxing and wrenching for his core. When he was told he had taken on some eccentric roles, he remarked, "I'm aware, I'm not doing great, I don't feel good." If an actor is taking on a multitude of roles that are psychologically taxing and potentially detrimental to his mental well-being, it is incumbent upon the directors to take action to safeguard his mental health. So what were the top 10 dark ways in which Evan Peters was highly affected by playing Jeffrey Dahmer? While we can all acknowledge that he earned a great deal of positive feedback for his portrayal of the serial killer, it was not a simple task for him. Entering the psyche of a notorious criminal can be a troublesome experience, and it had a few negative consequences on Peters. He was significantly affected while playing Jeffrey Dahmer. These are the top 10 instances he was so badly affected. Number 1 is that he endured a lot of pain in portraying Dahmer. A Twitter user articulated that Evan Peters displayed a high level of emotionality in this scene, evidenced by his facial expressions, tears, and the apprehension in his eyes. The fan even went so far as to assert that he should be awarded a Primetime Emmy. It's already quite clear that Evan can pull off any role effectively, yet this series has earned him an especially high amount of appreciation. Moreover, Molly Ringwald and Niecy Nash both put on noteworthy performances. Secondly, Evan Peters watched interview footage of Jeffrey Dahmer. It would be an emotionally demanding task for anyone to hear a sound recording of a serial killer detailing their misdeeds. It would also be challenging for most people to read narratives about individuals such as Dahmer. Furthermore, it would be incredibly difficult to watch any interviews they had partaken in, which is something that Evan had to do to prepare for his portrayal of Jeffrey Dahmer in a series. Next, Evan Peters didn't want any embellishment. Crafting a cinematic representation of an individual, especially a serial killer, is a daunting task. It is essential to remain accurate, while still showing consideration for those who were affected by the individual. When taking on the role of Jeffrey Dahmer, Evan Peters was mindful mindful of this and strive to be respectful to the families by avoiding exaggeration. The fourth indicator is how Evan Peters prepared to play Jeffrey Dahmer. Many performers require significant changes, intellectually and physically, to embody certain characters. This was what Evan Peters had to do when filming for the Netflix show. To further his mental preparation, he read books about the offenses Dahmer had committed before his arrest, which would have been a hard process. Then we have what Evan Peters thinks about Jeffrey Dahmer's story. A plethora of films and television programs depict intriguing scenarios. However, in reality, things can be more intense. This applies to the Netflix series in question, which left Evan Peters astonished that the incidents portrayed on the show were factual. The sixth indicator of the dark side is how the crew helped Evan Peters while filming Jeffrey Dahmer. Playing the role of Jeffrey Dahmer can be psychologically taxing, so Evan had to find ways to stay emotionally stable while shooting the film. Fortunately, the team that worked on Dahmer Monster: The Jeffrey Dahmer Story was able to provide support in preventing him from getting too immersed in the disturbing atmosphere his role entailed. Next is the understanding that Evan Peters knew he would have to go to a dark place. It's no secret that Evan Peters is well known for performing peculiar and unnerving roles, such as in American Horror Story. Yet this does not make it simpler for him to get ready for the part of Jeffrey Dahmer. Upon receiving the news, he was aware that it was not going to be a straightforward task. Mentally, he had to confront a very dark and dismal place. The eighth indicator is that Evan Peters was scared of Jeffrey Dahmer. Over the years, Evan Peters has taken on a variety of fascinating roles, but one in particular caused his trepidation. He expressed fear of the acts of Jeffrey Dahmer, which is a reasonable sentiment. Despite his fears, he performed admirably when it came to tackling the difficult scenes in the Netflix series. At number 9 is what playing Jeffrey Dahmer was like for Evan Peters. Evan Peters has undertaken a plethora of characters during his career, some of which have caused a strain on his psychological well-being. However, his portrayal of the real-life figure appears to have been the most challenging role to date. It is more problematic to play a person based on reality than a fictitious character. Last but not least is how Evan Peters read the killer's confession. It is certainly not an easy task for any individual to take in a confession of a serious crime, especially murder, whether it be through reading or simply hearing it. But this is a common practice for actors and actresses who are prepping for a role. In the case of Evan Peters, he studied the 1992 police report of Jeffrey Dahmer, which also included Dahmer's admission of guilt. Anyway, guys, we would love to hear your thoughts on our compilation of the different ways in which playing similar roles affected Evan Peters. Also, feel free to share your thoughts on some important ways in which the role playing of Jeffrey Dahmer affected Evan Peters. And lastly, remember to subscribe and like our content for more like these. Cheers, and see you next time.